ለምን ትቆላለህ?
ማቴ ነው
ይቆላል አይደል?
ማቴ መሰለኝ እኮ።
ማን ነው የሰጠው ለአንተ መብት?
ማን መሰለህ? ለራሴ መብት ሰጡት።
እና ይቀጥላል ይሄ መብት?
ይቀጥላል።
እርግጠኛ ነህ?
እርግጠኛ።
ለምን ነው የወደድከው?
አይ
መብት ነው እሱ።
ዝም ብዬ።
ዝም ብለህ?
አዎ ዝም ብዬ።
ሰይጣን ጆሮ እየያዘ ዛሬ እናውጃለን። አዎ ፉጨት ከሆነ ጨምሩልኝ። ኢየሱስ ጌታ። እሳትን አዘዝኩት በላይ ላይ እሳት ሊቭራዞ
As a psychologist, I was trained in hypnosis. I was also raised in a very fundamentalist religious environment when I was growing up. So as I was learning hypnotic techniques, I started realizing how much ministers use hypnotic methods in their delivery. For example, voice cadence and repetition. The Lord will provide for you. The Lord will provide for you. Brothers and sisters, if you just have faith, the Lord will provide for you. Now, why do ministers use rhythm and repetition? It's to put people into an altered state of consciousness, a hypnotic trance, if you will, so that they can then make hypnotic suggestions about things like giving money or giving time, getting more involved in the church, proselytizing for the church. You may have gone to sleep in church, or you may have seen people going to sleep in church. But if you look at the definition of sleep, it's a loss of muscle tension. The people who go to sleep in church aren't laying down flat with no muscle tension. They're setting up, and they mean nodding off here and there. That is nothing more than a hypnotic state. They're very relaxed. They're feeling very good in that state. And as a result of that, they start feeling like somehow the church has created this for them. The ministers created this for them. And they attribute it to God or spiritual experience. And they leave the church feeling very good. If you think of it as that minister has put them into a hypnotic trance through his repetition, through his use of rhythm, it all makes sense. Being raised in a fundamentalist home, I saw this from very early in my early childhood training. From the music, to the minister's voice, to the repetition of rituals, all are designed to create an altered state of consciousness. So, post-hypnotic suggestions can be given to give money, to give time, to proselytize. I'm going to talk about music later, because it's a special case. But we'll leave that for another time.
ይሄ ስልክ ከናንተ ውስጥ ከጉባኤ ውስጥ የወጣ ስልክ ነው? ልክ ነው? አዎ ከጉባኤ ውስጥ የወጣ ስልክ ነው። እኔ ደግሞ በእግዚአብሔር አምናለሁ። አሜን ጀዳ ኢማራ ሳታ ባካያ ጉባኤ የናንተም ስልክ ላውጡ አውጡና እንደዚህ አብሩና እንደዚህ አካ ኢብሳሜ ወንደ ከሳ ካይብሳ አብሩ እንደዚህ ያንተ ካንተ ተቀበልኩት አብሩ አብሩ እንዳይጠፋ አብራ እንደዚህ አብሩ እንደዚህ አብሩ እንደዚህ ምን ብያለሁ አብሩ አሁን ምንድነው የምትሆነው ታውቃለህ? አሁን እኔ እዚህ ሆኜ እናንተ ላዛለሁ። ትንቢት ተቀባይ ይሄ ነው። እናንተ ደግሞ ትንቢት አስፈጻሞች ናችሁ። አሜን። መላእክቶች ናችሁ። እፍ ብላን እዚህ ደገም እንደገና ዱቢን ገረገሉ ጅርት አሜን ጀዳ ነገር ሊገለበጥ ነው። አሜን በል። ስለዚህ አሁን ሁላችሁ እፍ ብሉት። ካሜራ ንካውን አማ ካሜራ ሩቁታ ከዛ እፍ ብሉት። ባካ ፎቶን ባሰን ሩቁታ ባካ ፎቶን ባው ሩቁታ አሳይ ወደዛ ሁላችሁ ትልቁ ወደዛ ወደ ጉባኤ አምጣ ወራ እንዴት ነው? አካም ነገ ማይ ጋድ
I don't think hell exists. I happen to believe in life after death, but I don't think it's got a thing to do with reward and punishment. Religion is always in the control business. And that's something people don't really understand. It's in the guilt-producing control business. And if you have heaven as a place where you're rewarded for your goodness and hell as a place where you're punished for your evil, then you sort of have control of the population. And so they create this fiery place, which has quite literally scared the hell out of a lot of people throughout Christian history. Mm-hmm. And it's part of a control tactic.
But wait a minute, you're saying that hell, the idea of a place under the earth or somewhere where you're tormented for an eternity, is actually an invention of the church?
I think the church fired its furnaces hotter than anybody else. But I think there's a sense in most religious life of reward and punishment in some form. The church doesn't like for people to grow up, because you can't control grown-ups. That's why we talk about being born again. When you're born again, you're still a child. The people don't need to be born again. They need to grow up. They need to accept their responsibility for themselves and the world.
What do you make of the theology, which is quite prominent these days in America, which is that there is one guaranteed way not to go to hell, and that is to accept Jesus as your personal Savior?
Yeah, I grew up in that tradition. Every church I know claims that we are the true church, and they have some ultimate authority. We have the infallible Pope, we have the inerrant Bible. The idea that the truth of God can be bound in any human system, by any human creed, by any human book, is almost beyond imagination for me. I mean, God is not a Christian. God is not a Jew or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist. All of those are human systems which human beings have created to try to help us walk into the mystery of God. I honor my tradition. I walk through my tradition. But I don't believe my tradition defines God. I think it only points me to God.
You and I are emerging people, not fallen people. Our problem is not that we are born in sin. Our problem is we do not yet know how to achieve being fully human. The function of the Christ is not to rescue the sinners, but to empower you and to call you to be more deeply and fully human than you've ever realized there was the potential within you to be. Maybe salvation needs to be conveyed in terms of enhancing your humanity rather than rescuing you from it.
Life is a startling and wondrous experience. And eventually, I think we're going to discover that God is unfolding through the life of our consciousness and our self-consciousness and is not a parent figure up in the sky. But I believe because I'm related to something that is not bound by time and space, that I will share in whatever God's eternity is.